And we are going to introduce you and discuss about a new European Commission initiative that is called Startup Europe Partnership that have been launched and announced and launched in Davos, the World Economic Forum in January. And we as Mind the Breeze are pretty honored to lead. So I would ask Felix if you can launch the video with the brief presentation from the European Commission, and then we go straight to the point.
Hello, everybody, dear tech entrepreneurs and investors. I'm joining you today here from Brussels, from the European Commission. My name is Isidro Laso. I am the head of the sector called Startup Europe. We have been working very closely with several leading tech entrepreneurs in Europe. We call it Startup Europe Leaders Club. And we made them a request. Tell us how the EU could make a better and strong environment for web entrepreneurs in Europe. The Startup Manifesto, a declaration of 22 recommendations, was the answer of this Leaders Club. We, the Commission, decided to execute the recommendations of this manifesto. And for that, we created first a think tank called Startup Europe European Digital Forum, and second, the Startup Europe Partnership. The European Digital Forum is a think tank to monitor the execution of the 22 recommendations of the Startup Manifesto. The Startup Europe Partnership is a group of corporations and higher education institutions to help the startups to scale up. The two activities were presented by Nelly Cruz at the World Economic Forum in Davos and come with the support of the European Commission, the European Investment Fund, and the European Investment Bank. Now here today we are presenting to you the Startup Europe Partnership. It is led by two persons who are there with you, Alberto, Onetti, and Marco Manuresi from Mind the Bridge. We ask you to take actions. You have all our support.
So was Isidro Laso, Balestreos from European Commission. And what is Startup Europe Partnership about? So European Commission asked one thing: what we can do to help European startups to scale up. And why that? Just look at these slides and probably you have an idea why this question is pretty important. So I asked the European Commission, I presented this data to the European Commission, and I asked them, can you tell me in one sentence what's the problem? And the problem is that the European tech titans, the European tech leaders are not living in Europe. Maybe some of them are born there, but most of them are growing elsewhere, and they are not there. And so you look at the numbers, the comparison just is impossible. And so the typical story, one good thing from Europe, and one good thing that we are experiencing, that now we have a startup ecosystem in Europe. In the last 5 years, we have done a lot of progress in terms of new startups, investors, accelerators, spin-off from universities. A lot of good progress have been made, but still we are not able to produce companies that are able to become global leaders. Why? Because if you are European startups and you need to grow up, yes, you have theoretically a gigantic market ahead of you, but practically you have 20+ markets ahead of you with not relevant players. And so it's pretty complicated to be able to grow. And so you have a problem in scaling up. You have a problem to get relevant investment to make the next steps. You have a problem in getting acquired because there are not large corporates with big pockets that are able to buy the most interesting companies. And also if they are there, they are not able to get in contact with them. So, as Isidro mentioned, the Startup Europe Manifesto pointed up this problem, and so we were called to find a solution. And the good point that we have an ecosystem. So we have all the ingredients now in Europe to be able to fix this bug. And how we are thinking, how we are trying to fix this bug, to fill this gap. The idea that we had is we have plenty of startups, so we have potential global leaders. We have large corporates, but these two parts of the ecosystem do not talk with each other. And so we are trying to put in place what is called a European matching platform, where the large corporates, European, but not only, also non-European, and we are looking also from comparing from other parts from Europe, are able to connect the best startups, where the best meet the best with one goal, to have as an output procurement, investments, and acquisitions. So we will try to put together a list of large corporates. 3 of them are already part of that, Telefonica, Orange, and BBVA. We are planning to engage others, and we are planning to ask them what they are looking for. What kind of technologies, areas of technology are you looking for? And then we are going to filtering the best startups all over Europe and put them in front of these large corporates. And we will not ask corporates just to join this because it's another nice marketing action, but we'll ask them to come to us because they have a real issue and they want to commit to make procurement, to make investments, and to make acquisitions. So we're only going to select corporates that have a budget for acquisition, that have a budget for strategic investment into startups, and that are really committed to buy from startups, products, and services. So if we are able to make this happen, we probably are able to give a way to the best European startups to grow and become relevant players. Some of them will be acquired, some of them will be able to sell their products and services into the corporates channels and become bigger. Some of them will receive co-investments, strategic investment for corporates, and be able to move to the next step. Again, it's a process, and it's a process that we believe that could get concrete results. So that's in the 20 seconds what Startup Europe Partnership is all about. We will we'll have a more detailed presentation in Brussels in April. We have the first matching event probably in London in June. It was called a sort of beta event because also we need to understand exactly how to make this matching work, because large corporates are houses with plenty of rooms, and so we need to understand exactly what are the stakeholders, the internal stakeholders that are really we need to talk to in order to get what they really need. And then we will start having events, matching events all over Europe. This year probably other 3-4 events and plenty more next year. So that is what is Startup Europe all about. I have the pleasure to have here, and thank you for coming, Tracy Isacke, that is the EVP of Telefonica in Silicon Valley. And so Tracy, just a couple of questions. First of all, you are living in Silicon Valley, you are part of European conglomerates. And so what's your, first of all, your perception about what is happening on the tech side in Europe?
So is this working yet? I think it's interesting actually. So I am also European. I'm from, is that one working? I'm from the UK originally, so I have the benefit of having a very good knowledge of Europe, as well as now having spent 4 years here in Silicon Valley. And interestingly, as Telefonica, we're about a 50-50 company in terms of our business, in that around 50% of our profits come from Europe and 50% come from Latin America. And what we have seen is that there are hubs of innovation and hubs of startup opportunities in each of the different areas. So we're seeing very different characteristics in Europe than we're seeing in Latin America, than we're seeing here in Silicon Valley. And so actually I think we have, you know, a very good opportunity to be able to see across the whole spectrum. And a program that we launched that some of you may have heard of is called Whiteaker. So we launched an incubator program across, it started actually in Latin America, but has then come across to Europe, which was to look at how we can find opportunities for small businesses to really be interested in having Telefonica as an investor in their business, but perhaps to look at solving some of the problems that Telefonica has in the geographies where we operate. And we've seen that that's certainly a very big part of our engagement here, because what we've seen is that the businesses in Europe that are starting are very much more advanced than the businesses in Latin America. The businesses in Latin America are probably a little more copycat businesses because they're really trying to solve a set of problems and challenges that are still a little bit further behind the problems that the European businesses are trying to solve. But we're seeing some really strong businesses coming out of our European investments. And we've been really impressed with the quality of startup kind of culture that's emerging, you know, and we don't have a hub in Italy, so it's difficult for me to talk specifically about Italy. But we have a hub in London, we have a hub in Berlin, we have a hub in Madrid and Barcelona, and one in Dublin. So we're in a number of European cities.
Looking at a potential European candidate for either investment, acquisition, what are the prerequisites? What kind of, or more practically, what kind of acquisition has Telefonica done in the past years, and what have you learned, both from success stories and less successful story? So what is your learning from buying, investing into European candidates? What are the pros, the cons? What's your experience there?
So within Telefonica, we have 3 different investment vehicles. So we have Whiteaker, which is our incubator program. So we are investing in a number of startups in Europe. We also invest as an LP into funds, and one of those is in Spain, which is called Amerigo. And then I run the investment group, which sits out here in Silicon Valley, but actually I also have people based in Europe and in Israel, interestingly, because Israel for us is a very you know, innovative hub in the world. and we don't really differentiate on where the company comes from. What we're looking for when we invest or buy is, does that company fit well with Telefonica? You know, is there something about what that company is doing that we think by buying or investing, we would have a different relationship than we could just with a commercial partnership? So it's really, it's kind of very personal rather than being a very general thing. It's about, is there a part of our business that startup particularly solves a problem? So an example I would just use, we invested in a company in Spain recently. They're called BlueLive. They're focused on cybersecurity. They already had agreements with 3 or 4 multinational Spanish companies, so there was a really, really strong fit. But for them to grow and be strong enough for us to feel comfortable putting them into our enterprise customers, we felt it was a good company to invest in, so we can kind of give them that next step up the ladder. So it's a win-win. So they have the money to be stronger. We know that they're going to be around for our customers. So, and we have the chance to make them quite exclusive because, you know, we kind of involved in them early on.
Just one of the typical concern when I'm presenting sort of your partnerships, we are trying to, obviously, some people say you want to put in the same bed startups and large corporates. And a lot of people, this instant reaction is, oh, this is dangerous. Nobody will want to invest in a startup that have been receive money from a large corporate, or could be some specific clauses that could prevent the potential future growth of the company. What's your position about that?
I mean, it's a really good question. And interestingly, some of the financial investors and some of the startups would be very concerned about any kind of any caveats that you might put into an investment that cause that company to suffer in the future. And we are very conscious of that. What I do think is, and being here in Silicon Valley, there is plenty of money for anybody to have investments made in them as a company. What you give as a corporate, the money is kind of important, but it's the least relevant part of the relationship. You know, as Telefonica, what we give to a startup is a distribution channel to 320 million customers in 26 countries. And any venture capital company can't give that. So the value add of a strategic is always the fact that you will deliver on that promise, and that's probably the thing that we have to be really conscious of, is that, you know, do we actually deliver what we said we were going to deliver as far as that relationship goes, you know? And the honest answer is sometimes it works really well, and you know, like any marriage or any relationship, sometimes it's less good and someone goes off and is unfaithful, or, you know.
Yeah. That beds are always a dangerous place to be. Yes, just final remark. Since this is a question that I've been asked me a lot of times, my typical answer is, obviously, there is always a risk when you start engaging with large corporate, because they want to be in control of what you're doing. And that could be, at a certain point, could you probably prevent your future growth. On the other hand, what we are trying to do at Startup Europe Partnership is to create a European platform. And so try to reduce the strong link between one startup and one corporate, but put the corporates together and to play with the same rules. Since this is probably the value added that we can add to moving as, not as Telefonica, Wire, and his own arms with a specific geography or specific technology, a specific company, but as Europe, putting together the best corporates from different sectors and having them to engage startups with the same rules. And also probably these works to putting together around the same table will also help us to avoid that this perception that is pretty widespread will be turned into reality, and probably this will be one of the factors that could probably make this successful, as we hope.